That's all right.
Okay, this is going to be a talk about the Agricultural Branch Railroad. Some of you may not have heard that. Heard about that. It was started in 1846. It was the Massachusetts legislature thought that these towns in central Massachusetts, it's called Agricultural Branch Railroad, had goods that they wanted to sell in Boston, in the metropolitan area, and vice versa. People in Boston wanted fresh eggs, fresh milk, and there was a morning train called the milk train, and every day it left this area to Boston. It was in Boston at 8 o'clock. Okay, it would leave Fitchburg at 6. So it ran like clockwork every day. You could tell from the whistle that what the time was. So this a little bit about us, and this is the spring membership meeting. This is Ed Sterling. Go ahead, Ed, if you want to say something.
Thanks. So I've been a computer technician in this area. Probably know a lot of you about that. I've gone to your homes, fixed your computers. I've done some lectures on the Central Mass Railroad in a number of different towns. And I also did one on the Wachusett Reservoir, the construction of it, and some of the amazing and sad immigration policies with the immigrants and how they lived. So that's another lecture I've developed here for the Holden Memorial. I live in Bolton, and I'm very active in the Boy Scouts and the Bolton Parks and Recreation Committee. Thank you.
And I'm Dave Westerling. I'm a civil engineer and have been on town boards for the Finance Committee, Conservation Commission, and was town moderator for a couple of years, and I enjoyed that a lot. I'm currently president and CEO of the New England Plan Group, which is a planning looking at transportation, social issues, and other things. Preserving the New England heritage is what I'm really interested in as well. So that's a little bit about us. We're going to wrap that up. Marty Miller is in the audience. Marty, can you raise your hand? He's here. I saw him here.
Out in the lobby. Okay. All right.
Okay, he helped put these plans together that you'll see on the screen, and they're also up for display. Oh, okay, there's people in the other side that want to hear about it?
Yeah.
All right. And thanks to Terry and Jean Emirati and other people here in the Clinton Historical Society that's helped us. Here's a typical locomotive of the 1800s, late 1800s. And I'll take this slide, I guess. This is the two areas. The Ag Railroad really starts down here in Framingham. Starts in Framingham, comes up through Marlboro, and continues north, goes under Route 290, and then continues to 190, and then it ended in Leominster. So there's about 12 towns in this red agricultural branch railroad area. There was a second railroad that went from Worcester up to West Boylston, down the west side of what is now Wachusett Reservoir, and kept going up through Clinton and then up to Devens, Fort Devens, and on to Nashua, and then eventually to Portland, Maine. So you can see where they cross right here, this area. That's called Clinton. And so the railroads crossed, and that meant you could switch trains if you wanted to. You could go whether east, west, north, south. It was a unique place, really, and it was called Union Station in a lot of places. So with that, then this comes from the CSX. CSX now runs freight on both of these railroads. And this is a national map. We're going to end a little bit tonight about CSX and what they're doing to the railroad and how great their project is. And I guess could turn it back to you at this
Sure.
point.
That's fine. Thank you. So it goes way back, as you can see. 1846. Those are pretty early days. A lot of times they would get these railroads chartered, and it would take quite some time to get the funding and then eventually get the crews to come out, and tremendous amount of work, of course, in constructing the even grades to make sure the railroad ran straight and true. So they had to issue bonds to cover the construction of that, and that was part of the start of the railroad. So it took a while for all these railroads around here to do that. This would have been a stock share. Back in those days, you would have purchased a share of the railroad. Here's $500. I don't know, sometimes they'll have like different people in towns, wealthy people in towns would pony up the money to create it. And once you got enough funding, you could actually hire then the crews to get out there and create the track right-of-ways. The railroad began down in Framingham, what they call the South Framingham Station. It started, of course, there and slowly made its way up. It wasn't all done at the same time. They got up to about Marlboro, and then eventually over to Northborough, which is, see if we can do a pointer, there it is, right there. All right, and finally up, crossing, of course, today, 290, going up into Berlin, and eventually into Clinton. So we start in Framingham, and of course, many of the water bodies weren't there because of the reservoir project. It was farmland, and as Boston needed more and more water, more and more reservoirs were constructed going to the west. All right? So you had the Coquitchuit Reservoir, was one of the big projects down by Framingham, and that's the one you typically see driving along the Mass Pike, perhaps when you're going to Boston. So the train starts there, and there's a picture of the old station. The railroad station is South Framingham, Mass. Right? Sad that so many of these stations are gone now. There's very little preservation of railroad stations, and we're certainly lucky to have Clinton. And I recently visited with Dave the Leominster train station, and that too is a marvel of architecture. Sadly, it's a liquor store. There's nothing left inside, but I'm glad they preserved the outside of it. Right? And very few of these survive. So if you're driving along the Mass Pike, you may have wondered about a railroad bridge that never seems to get much traffic as you're going into Boston. And that's this railroad bridge here on what they call the Foss Reservoir. I've seen different names. I've seen Coquitchuit as well. That's that big apartment complex on Route 9 if you happen to be traveling on Route 9. But this is the track that, again, I don't think I've ever seen a train there, but it's part of the active line for the CSX Railroad. And this would have been part of this agricultural branch to start with. The train would continue on, again, through water bodies that likely weren't there back in the day, up into Southborough. There was also a small station called Fayetteville at that time. It was just kind of a whistle stop back in the day. And so there's the station Southborough. Many of the slides are marked what they call Nashua City Station. There's a phenomenal collector of these photographs and postcards and so on. And he's been very generous in putting these online. So in many cases, some of these images are the only thing we have for a lot of these stations. And the gentleman looks pretty dapper there in his straw hat. Probably dates to about 1910, something like that. After Southborough, you got to a place called the Marlboro Junction. Today, there's a bunch of plants there. A FedEx plant is quite close by. And we see Route 85 over on the right side. And Marlboro Junction was a way to get trains into the city of Marlboro. It was kind of a trick. It was served both by the B&M coming down from Hudson on today's well-used rail trail, all right? But it stopped at Main Street. They didn't join together. This one also went north to Main Street in Marlboro, but it too didn't cross and join. So they basically dead-ended. This is a picture of the Marlboro Junction, and there was a station there. We see something like a kind of an L. That's a train order board for the engineer to obey some kind of a special order from the station master that might concern something he should do with his train. All right? So it split, and one set of tracks on the right side went on to Northborough, and the tracks on the left went up to the city itself. This kind of gives you a general overview, all right? So it goes up into the city. Let's see here. There we are. On a special spur. And as far as we can tell, it probably backed up to go into the city, all right? There was no place to turn around once the locomotive got there. This is a picture of the New Haven station, as we call it. Back in the day, of course, agricultural branch was then absorbed by something called the Old Colony Railroad, which came out of Cape Cod. And eventually that was bought by the New Haven Railroad, which had the fairly long name of the New York, New Haven, and Hartford. Right? The ladies' dresses are dated pretty well to quite a long time ago. And likewise, the little horse and buggy, the streetcars that were everywhere in this entire area. There were streetcars all over the place. And here's the station on the left side. And as I say, it basically dead-ended. There were a couple of tracks for the passengers to unload, and then it had to go forward out of the city back down to the junction point. So now coming back down out of Marlboro, all right, we switch and keep going to the west, going under today's 495, and we're going up toward Northborough, all right, which is over here. Let's see if we can get that. A rather quaint picture of Northborough back in the day. I think 1867, is it? Maybe somebody.
87.
87, thank you, 1887. Very quaint map. And if we can, let's see if we can identify a little train there. So there's the train coming around the track. We see a couple of passenger cars, little steam engine ahead, basically going to the station right in the middle of the city. Right? And there it is. Not many photographs of Northborough railroading. Relatively few, surprisingly. And again, there's an old-time map that we found, right? And a picture of downtown Northborough. And it's interesting, the little engine says the Boston and Albany. So Boston and Albany was the main line coming out of Boston in those days, and likely they were using equipment from that railroad. What's interesting is that there seemed to be a mystery station somewhere along the way. And we found out it was called Talbot. I think it might be T-A-L-B-O-T. It's hard to find on maps. And the hint at the need for a station was the big Westboro State Hospital. It started as a boys' reform school, eventually went into what they call the Hospital for the Insane, right? And then became a state hospital of general purpose. Something had to supply that hospital. And I don't think horse and buggies were going to do it over a long period of time. So the value of the railroad was tremendous if they could unload goods near that. Right? Here's these poor boys at the reform school basically loading rocks into a horse and buggy. All right? And that was the original purpose of that facility. All right? 1848, 1855 time frame. Then eventually it converted into the state hospital. So near Lyman Road, we found a place where there was this mystery station, long gone as far as we can tell. There's nothing there.
And the people in Northborough really didn't know about this station.
Right?
So when we were giving this talk in Northborough, we said, well, we'll check out the station a little bit. And we found this.
Right, that's about it. There's very distant references, little tiny references on maps. There's purported to be a picture of the station, and so far, we can't seem to find the owner, but we're still trying, okay? Through the one of the Boston and Maine societies, or the what they'll call the mass recreational people who give rail tours. So we're still trying on this one, right? And Dave did a little field trip down there, and sure enough, he found the switch where the cars would have gone into a siding where they would have unloaded things like coal and other supplies. Right? And that's about the only remnant of it. The tracks are all gone. They left the switch post, which is kind of interesting. It's been locked in place, and it serves no particular purpose at this time. There was an accident at one point where they had some coal cars that rolled up on the siding, but it was a slight hill. And somebody didn't set the brake correctly, and the coal cars came down and met the Morning Express, and they had quite the big accident there, okay, with the train going over the coal cars. So from Northborough, we proceed north, going up to Berlin. And it turns out there were two stations in Berlin, all right, which was kind of confusing at first to understand, was it the West Berlin station that people are familiar with the big bridge that was once there? Or was it something south? And it turned out there's a small station, long gone, on Jones Road, all right? And there it is. So initially, there might have been a thought, oh, that's the one in the center of town by Carter Street in Highland. That's not. That's down in Jones Road and was just a little station to serve the people on the south side of Berlin. And again, that white board is called a train order board. That is, again, something for the engineer to obey as he comes by. It says Denver, but it's representative of the milk trade. The milk trade basically began with the famous metal cans that the milk was loaded into. There was a tremendous amount of work that these people had to do to load these cans on the car and off. And I recently purchased a series of history of the milk cars at a local train show. And it's fascinating how much work was involved in loading milk cans, which were quite heavy, in and out of these cars. Eventually they were able to put some extra insulation, but actual refrigeration units came much later. Here we have a timetable. It's interesting to note some of the times, which are relatively efficient, even compared to today's highways. But notice the little dash by Clinton, all right? And at that point, you were able to make a transfer to the Boston and Maine. So you then could have gone possibly to Worcester, south. You could have gone east into Boston, and so on. So it gave the opportunity for people to really move very efficiently in the town of Clinton, or obviously people coming north who were going to go somewhere else, not necessarily just Leominster. So it's kind of fascinating to see the times. They really are pretty good compared to the driving times you would have today. All right. So now from Jones Road, we go up north to West Berlin, all right, which is what many of us are familiar with, where Route 62 and turns up into the Berlin Road to go to Clinton. 62, of course, goes to the reservoir and deadheads there at Route 70. Right? And again, at one time, the Central Mass used to have quite the bridge going over the New Haven Railroad, which again is our agricultural and old colony. This is the original picture of the West Berlin station, so named, but people got confused. So eventually they gave up calling it West Berlin, and they called it Carter's, which was a family of some affluence operating a lot of facilities in that side of town. And you see the old water tower there to fill up the tender with water for the steam engines. This is just an interesting picture of Route 62 as we know it today, with trolley tracks. Let's see if we can get those in the picture here. There we are. And it's hard to see, but there's an overhead wire, and there they are. That's the overhead electricity to power the trolley. And just down beyond the bridge, there's a liquor store, I think it's called Daniels, if I've got the pronouncing right. That apparently was a power generating station, that old brick building that powered the overhead wires for the trolley that ran all the way around this area. So that's Route 62 here, an old sawmill, and the Central Mass Railroad is going over the New Haven, or Old Colony, right here. You can't really see much at that point. There's a nice map that a gentleman made showing what we call Carter's, or West Berlin. It's the same building, just renamed. The bridge, and I think a little trolley stop here, and eventually the same picture that we saw. What's very curious is this track right here. There was actually a track that was connected with the old Central Mass Railroad down to the New Haven, and it's a complete mystery. It seemed to have been built. There's a rock cut that's there. I've talked to some historians, and nobody seems to know why they did it. It didn't seem to get any traffic, and it's kind of a shame in a sense that it might have eliminated the need for the tunnel and the viaduct at the Wachusett Dam if they had only used that. But perhaps it was a competition issue where the New Haven said, well, we're going to charge the hell out of you guys, okay, for using our railroad. Maybe it was pride, I don't know. I've looked in the records here at the Holder, and there's just nothing to really explain whatever happened to that track. But it's for real, and it was basically prepared and nobody used it. Yes, sir?
That picture of the train going over at that corner on Route 62,
Right here?
yeah. When we moved to Berlin in 1968, I remember there was still stone abutment
Yes.
right in the middle of Route 62.
They're still there.
Yeah.
And then, well, they got rid of that.
Well,
No.
the abundance are still there, the side
No, it's
that
not.
held up the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, held up the bridge. The rail service stopped in 1958. There was a train in May of '58, a Bud car, that made the very last trip from the center of Berlin over to the Clinton station. And at that point, the passengers were discharged. A lot of them were children of the area, and the parents had to go pick them up. They didn't want anybody on the train going back, and it was called deadheading. So they deadheaded, probably back to, could be Sudbury at that point. And that was the very last train to go over the viaduct, May of 1958. This again is something that a friend of mine made, showing this kind of mysterious connection that goes from the Central Mass Railroad. Right now, there's a development called Pollard Road. I don't know how they ever got to disrupt the right-of-way, which may be a rail trail, we don't know. There's certainly attempts to do it, but this would have been the track, and there's just nothing left at this point. The old original right-of-way, of course, when the reservoir was there, that went under the water of the dam. And so a number of stations had to be relocated, and that's why today we have the curve right at the junction of the roads to go up to Woodlands condo development, and then of course into the tunnel and the clamshell, and eventually over the viaduct that went over the water. Okay. And again, just what they call Carter's, which is an odd name when I encountered it, but it's simply what we call West Berlin. I'm guessing, and I don't know, I'd welcome any information, this looks like a little trolley hut. The station itself was down here, but it's puzzling that it says Carter's, and yet it doesn't seem to make much sense in terms of the railroad itself. I don't know what function it had. We can see something like a Model A in here behind the station. So having left downtown Berlin in the West Berlin side, we start to now get up to Clinton, and we are going to make one last little station in Bolton at the bottom of Wattaquatic Hill Road. And there it is, long gone. The house is still there. All right, it's amazing. hasn't changed, and everything has changed in terms of grading, the rise of the road, the roadbed, and so on. The station is just a memory at this point. I have no idea whatever happened to it. Little country station. And again, just evidence of the milk business being in cans in those days. Eventually, it would get quite sophisticated, and they would have special milk cars with giant tanks. So we got rid of the cans, and giant insulated tanks, even some of them glass lined, was how the milk was prepared and shipped in bulk without having to do all that extra labor of unloading. And there's the road today at the Little Bolton station. And the house is still the same. It's fascinating. So that's the road down to the condos, and then if we turn to the left, we're going down Water Street and Chase Street Extension.
Back here?
Sorry? Yes, sir. Yeah, ma'am.
I grew up right there at the train tracks, Bolton Station. My father, we were across from that other house.
Okay.
And I was 4 years old, and we'd wave to the train every day. And the engineer would throw me candy bars.
Is that right? Was the little station there?
No, the station was gone, but we had to cross the tracks
Sure.
to my grandparents.
Yeah.
So we were always crossing the
Is
tracks.
that right? Carefully. I'm going to turn it over to Dave. We're now going to talk about this amazing Clinton Union Station. So let's see what happens.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about Union's Clinton Station. And this was the architect, Robert Dreamer, And this is a book about him. It's here in the Holder Hall. They have a copy of it. We've looked at it, and we'll talk a little bit about him before we go too much further. This is one of his works, and if you've been to Yellowstone Park and Old Faithful, next to it is this the Old Faithful Inn, and he designed it, and it's one of his treasured properties. He's also done a lot of railroad stations. This one is close by in Gardner, Montana. He did a lot of stations in the West with the Northern Pacific and other railroads. Here's another shot of that Old Faithful Inn. It's a magnificent building. If you go to Old Faithful, try to make sure you go to that inn. It's really a special place.
There's Old Faithful erupting in the background, by the way, the white column.
Another one of his buildings, it was called Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham, Washington. It was a excellent design. It's still in use today. So there's always something going on at this theater in Bellingham, Washington, every day of the week for the last, since it was built in the 1930s. It's really a popular place. And the inside is magnificent and well done. You can see the architecture a little bit that he brings. And here's the Clinton Station. You see that architecture of horizontal one. So there's a building primarily which was the two-story station, but then attached to it is a one-story building for, it turned out, American Express offices and waiting rooms and things like that. So you can see the similarities with the design. Also, you can see the tile roof. What's interesting about the Clinton rail station? Tile roof. It's not leaking a drop. It's as good as the day it was built. So this is the first floor plan. So in the other room on the table, we've got 3 floor plans and 3 sections or elevations to look at. And so this is the first floor, and I'll point to the section locations. The first one is A. Let's see if right here. No, I guess I got. It's this one. This is AA, starts here and goes through the entire length of the buildings. BP is this one, perpendicular to AA is this one, and then CC is this one. So there's 3 sections that you can see on the table. I'll address them briefly.
We're very grateful to Gary O'Connell, the owner of the station and the laundromat that you're familiar with. Still had the blueprints from 1913. He's very gracious in allowing us to pick them out and photograph them. It's unbelievable that they survive like that. It's wonderful. We're very grateful for that.
We actually took the pictures in the laundromat, folding tables in the laundromat. And then we had Marty Miller from Berlin rather, put the photographs together, and we came up with the 3 core plans that you'll see here, and 3 sections. So what I've done, rather than look at the screen, and I zeroed in on a couple of things. This is the American Express office, which was at the end of this section. There was an American Express office, and there were two departments. There was a freight department and a money department. So in 1913, 1915, when the building was built, you could go in and get a money order from American Express. Like we used to use traveler's checks. Remember the American Express traveler? Don't travel without them. Well, that was Clinton in 1913, 1915. So that was opened a lot of doors for the citizens of Clinton, the businesses in Clinton, and the American Express office basically was a freight office, and you could bring anything you wanted to ship anywhere in the world and bring it to that office, and it would get shipped. A little bit like FedEx would be today. Another thing was there was another express office called Adams Express. Adams Express was more in the, what was it, National Express, Railroad Express office. And they had, in Clinton, there was an Adams Express office. And it again, was a shipping and financial place. Here's an Adams Express bond. They were into financing. It's a 4% bond, which was held till 1948. So it was probably a 50-year bond. And we, on the first floor, we got some pictures of the first floor. This was taken, we think, after the trains had stopped,
Right, might be 1930,
1930s.
possibly.
Yeah. And some of you might recognize the clothing store that's there now.
Yeah.
And in the background, you can see the door. That was above the door. It says baggage, and that's still there in the consignment shop. I have a picture of it in a minute here. The stairway going up to the right goes all the way up to the second floor waiting room. So that staircase, again, is open all the way up. So it's not your standard, standard building staircase where you walk along a railing and that's it. It goes all the way up and you can see all the way up. So it goes in almost a circular staircase in the apartment buildings they used to have. And the benches are in place still. Over there on the right-hand side is the ticket window. There's the door today, and it's a Dutch door. So there's halfway up there's a shelf, so that you can pass bags through the door, and not have to lift them. You could lift them over the top.
It's one of the few things that survived. There isn't much else in terms of some of the beautiful woodwork like that. It's probably about the only really good remnant we have.
Then the second floor shows the second floor. The train. The train is. Let's see.
Higher up.
So this is the Ag Express or the Ag Railroad, and this is the other railroad there. Here, so now the second floor. Here's the waiting room upstairs, and here's the staircase coming up. Right in here. And this area is a telegraph office. So again, I've zoomed in a little bit to see so you can see some of the details. Here's the coming up. There's a landing here. You can actually see the beginning of this first landing. This landing here goes into the telegraph office. So having a telegraph office was kind of important in those days. And there's a passageway. There's a door here. And there's a passageway that goes outside and then down these stairs to the platform. And that passage was for not the passengers, but for the telegraph operator. Because if he had a message to give to someone on the train, he's not going to use a cell phone. So he's got to run down the stairs up to the platform and give it to a conductor and say, this is for so-and-so. And vice versa. If the conductor had messages to go somewhere, they would wave the clerk down, and that's how the message would get sent. So that was a little... So this is an exterior view of the upstairs waiting room with the tracks in the foreground, and then a canopy so people would come out of the upstairs waiting room and go right out to the tracks. And we're going to show you the inside here in the next slide.
It is said that this was the only two-level, two-story station in New England.
So
The
it had two
upstairs
levels.
being the New Haven, the downstairs being the Boston and Maine.
So that's what makes it kind of a unique place. And then you could go in either direction. You change trains there and so forth. So this is the stairway going up that you saw at the bottom. You can see in the shop, in the consignment shop now. This is the end of it, just before you get into the waiting room. And it's not connected, of course, anymore. But we saw this and we took this picture. It's got a plain light bulb above it. There's no windows. All the windows are blocked up. But at least it's there. And I thought you'd like to see that. On the inside, that door that you see is the other side of that staircase. So passengers would come up and then come through that door into the waiting room on the second floor. The baseboard, like all the baseboards in the building, is marble. The floors are gone, but they were terracotta floors like you're on right now. Some of the work up there hasn't been, varnished or anything recently, but it's still there. And there were chandeliers or we'll call it lights fixtures. These are all the pendants below the light fixtures. The sconces, wall sconce. And there's the famous tile insert. This was a water fountain
Right.
and bubbler, and that is the picture of the Wachusett Reservoir in that tile.
And you can see the little powerhouse down the bottom, the dam, just turn it back. We've got the water and the mountains in the background. When we encountered it, it was half destroyed, sadly, and all the tiles underneath it. So this is a Photoshop reproduction of what it would have looked like back in the day. And there was a pipe that came out just about toward the bottom tile there, where there obviously would have been some kind of a water fountain with a basin. But it's so wonderful that somebody took the time to make this little decorative artwork right at the head of the water fountain.
Was the floors and the tile and everything, was it damaged due to people breaking in? Or did they just take it up over time?
I don't think it was ever broken in, it's just utility,
I think they took
it's just pure
the water
utility.
fountain out. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't need
But
it.
the floors and everything,
Yeah.
they just,
They laid in the floor in the baggage area that wasn't there. The baggage room was a huge two-story, big open baggage room. And in later years, different owners of it have put in a floor that wasn't there at all. We actually had to crawl through a hole in the wall, almost like war damage.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, they had to knock through to get into that room. Yeah, it's weird.
My mom said she waited for Harry Truman. I was just an infant and she waited for hours for Truman to
Right.
get through. And we used to, I didn't remember per se, I do remember the train, but she said we used to do a picnic basket.
Yep.
And we would ride to Boston.
Sure, absolutely.
So someone mentioned Harry Truman. Did anyone remember when Harry Truman visited?
3 times.
People? Okay. And we had a picture of Harry Truman. Mark gave us
You
one
didn't know?
on the back of the train at
Yeah,
at
wait.
the Clinton
She
Station.
says I waited for hours and he goes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you, Mark, for that. That was really great.
It's also said that Teddy Roosevelt cruised through town at about 3 miles an hour, taking his sons up to Groton, and would just kind of wave, and the train wouldn't stop, and crowds would come out to see him.
right.
I can read this. This
Yeah.
is from the item. It was dusk as the train pulled into the depot square on October 17,
Could you stand up?
1950.
Thank you.
Piana,
It's all right, thank you.
in October 17, 1952, as a part of President Harry S. Truman's Whistle Stop Tour. The president had come to Clinton to see the aunt of his appointment secretary, native Matt Connolly. As Truman stepped off the train, a young Clinton patrolman shone his flashlight at the president and said, "Watch your step, Mr. President." Truman looked at the policeman and shot back, "You watch yourself, son. I can take care of myself." The young patrolman was Acting Sergeant William F. O'Malley, my father.
Thank you. Another picture of the upstairs waiting room, showing one of the windows. The windows are all blocked up. And also the door to the train is to the left of the slide here. I took a close-up of this to show the clock was right above the door to the exterior, so you could tell whether you're on time or not. You could almost, and you could see a little bit of the woodwork along the top of the, between the ceiling and the wall here. You can see all of the woodwork was amazing. No, and that was this architect, really attention to detail and well designed. So this, as an engineer, this really struck me as an interesting place. Because of the boiler, there was a boiler here in this room. It was a steam boiler, like a steam locomotive, but it didn't have any wheels. It was stationary, a stationary steam engine. And their coal would be delivered. Here's the rail track, one of the rail tracks here at the lower level. And there was a manhole in the platform, and they would dump the coal in a chute that would go into this room. That room was dedicated for coal. And these things here are trenches. They're concrete trenches, about 3 feet deep and 3 feet wide. And these are teeth, so they're underneath each of the benches where people were waiting, there'd be radiators, steam radiators. And then going into the men's room and women's room here, there'd be radiators in the middle. And this is the American Express office. At the end of the American Express office, there was steam throughout the building. On a cold winter's night, didn't bother the train system at all. And there was also steam over here to the the Adams Express office. Today there's a laundromat there, and there are electric dryers that go 7 days a week. The building is dry as a bone. It's still like having a steam plant in it, and it's an interesting design. There's the boiler, the coal and the oil, and the boiler room in the beginning of the steam trenches. So we also got 3 sections out of these drawings, and these are cross sections. So maybe pictorially you can see a little of the shape of the building, some of the details. So the upper level here, here's the center line of the trains. This is what we just looked at in the upstairs waiting room. You've seen the stairway here, the stairs, and a little bit about that. There was a baggage area, a large baggage area for freight and baggage. Everyone had a trunk if they were traveling. There were no suitcases, everyone used a trunk. And so this was stacked with baggage. Here downstairs is the boiler and the coal room. And here's the main waiting room on the first floor, which you've seen a picture of. And back here is the men's and ladies' room, and beyond that is the American Express. We got maybe a detail of that open staircase. that I thought was sort of made the building special. The section BB, which is at right angles to what we just looked at. Here's the lower. BB,
Keep going.
there we are. Here's the track, north and south. Here's that staircase that the telegraph operator would run down. And then here's the baggage. The baggage area is here, and here's the Adam Express office. And CC is the last one, the short one. And there's a look at the staircase here, showing going upstairs and then up. The ticket window is here, and again, the canopy over the lower platform. And with that, we're gonna go on and move beyond the Clinton Station. And I'll hand it back to Ed. We'll continue on our trip up the Egg Branch Railroad.
Okay, so again, remember, we're on the New Haven Railroad, or Old Colony, basically. And the B&M was the lower level at the station. And that again would have gone up to probably Air and Lowell and beyond. So on the map, we're coming out of Clinton from the east, going up northwest, okay, along Route 62. And there was a spur at what they call Pratt's Junction, up along Route 12. And the Worcester Railroad was down below, and yet there was business in Sterling, apparently quite a big cider mill. And so a spur was built at Pratt's to go south into Sterling. And if you went even further, there was a Sterling Junction with a station that joined with the Worcester Railroad. So there were interconnections just everywhere. So it just gives you an idea of Pratt's Junction today, just a little bit north of the Sterling Police Station along Route 12, right, near the interstate. And so just a water tower, and just a simple station, kind of a flag stop, so to speak. So on we were going to Leominster as the next stop. And this is an old picture of the station. We're looking basically at the back side of it. Route 12 today would be kind of off to our left. We just visited the station yesterday. Schofields, which you may know for power equipment and so on, that is just to the right, almost behind this building or this house that we see on that side. And so the train is stopped at the station at that point. It again is like, looks the same as it always had. It's been beautifully preserved. But internally, unfortunately, there's really almost nothing left. The liquor store and the Knights of Columbus Hall now occupy the Knights of Columbus are on the second floor, and that's a relatively new development there. Going further on, there was a small New Haven station in Fitchburg. Very little known about it. I don't know if anybody ever saw that. I think that's the only picture we've ever found of it. And the next stop, pretty obviously, would have been into Fitchburg City at the big, beautiful Union Station, where they meet the main line coming out of Boston and going off to the Hoosick Tunnel. And so that's the end of the trip. The statistics that we saw in Leominster was that there were 36,000 people a year served by that train station. In Leominster, it's hard to believe, isn't it, that there were that many people. There's very little photograph of passenger service. It's funny how little is known about the actual passenger operations on that railroad. Today, of course, it's still active with CSX for freights only. And there's been really no other passenger service. We did find a rail fan trip with a picture of some of the old silver Bud cars that was perhaps in the mid-50s or 60s, and it was at the Clinton Station. I don't know if anybody ever rode on that fan trip, but they still have a lot of fan trips around this area on the old lines that are still certified as active as Class A railroads. But that's the end of the trip, unfortunately, on the old Boston and Maine, and where we meet that. And so we're just giving you an overview from, essentially that's the northern end, all right? It stopped in Fitchburg. There's a big Twin Cities rail trail now. The tracks actually end in Leominster, right around that big Hannaford's on Route 117, all right? And there's an old black bridge there that you go under as you pass Hannaford's. The trains basically stop there. They do not connect to the station at all. And apparently in May, the station owner told me, they supposedly will finish that last segment from the Water Tower Plaza down to the station itself. And apparently the rail trail stops there, to the best of our knowledge. So CSX is the new owner of everything. The Boston and Maine, the New Haven, it's the surviving railroad. So you want to do this one?
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
Finish up a
Okay.
little bit with CSX. We talked with them a little bit about this railroad, and they have a heritage program. Let me talk. Here's a picture that's when they first purchased the railroad. You can see the bridge here. There's double tracks at this point.
In Clinton.
In Clinton. So this is the Clinton station, and here's the bridge. Unfortunately, they had to CSX does a lot of long haul freight, and they use double deck flat cars with double deck trailers on them. They wouldn't fit under this bridge. No problem for CSX. They raised the bridge 2 feet. Okay, and there's 2 tracks, so they just took 1 track out of service, raised that side. They had to build concrete abutments, rebuild the concrete abutments at 2 feet higher. And in the center, rather than the old steel posts, they put in a concrete pedestal. So it takes heavier loads, and once they got that first one done, they then they put that in service, took the second one out and raised the second one up 2 feet. And right now they pull double decker flat cars under that bridge. So that's the kind of money that they're spending on. In Berlin, all of the track is new, and all the ties have been replaced. So you can imagine what that cost is. So CSX is in our midst now. There's that, Ed was talking about, the Bud cars at the Clinton station. You can see people are getting off and sightseeing a little bit.
It's called a fan trip.
There's a
Yep,
fan
one of
trip.
a kind.
And we actually investigated this line coming off. There was went down to the, what do you call
The
it?
Ruane Coal Company?
Ruane Coal Company.
Yep.
And now it's blocked off, but they probably bring in coal in by truck and take away by truck. So, in any case, that was an interesting. Thanks for traveling the Egg Branch Railroad. Here's that map I referred to. If you go online and get this map on your screen, you can put in your zip code, and you can see that map. I did the one that you saw when we started with the 2 lines, but you could see in Northborough, you could see the line as it goes through Northborough. So this is an active map going from Chicago down to New Orleans, all the way up to Maine and beyond. And we are now part of that railroad. So that's amazing. Everything is being upgraded, the signals and so forth. And so it's like we're still bound to that railroad of 1848 and 46. We like it because it ties the towns together a little bit. We all used to work together on things rather than separately. And the railroad kind of is a unifying thing for us. Blow your whistle. Where's the whistle? Blow the whistle. So blow a cue.
Okay, we got-
Have you ever heard a cue?
when you cross a road, it's the Q in Morse code.
It's the Q in Morse code.
Right.
And that's what you hear at night. If you got the screens are, the windows are open, the screens are on. And I think that, hang on a second, that's it. Oh, next step, Leominster,
Yep.
there's a possibility we're gonna be asked to speak something like this in Leominster.
Oh,
We're gonna try to be at all 12 towns along the railroad. We're starting a fan club called Friends of the Ag Branch Railroad. And eventually we'll get some of the word out to, the people here, and how many people would be interested in kind of joining the Long Branch? It's like, you don't know anything about it, and still, and it's just, right now, it's just a friends group. We don't know what beyond that is.
would there be interest in MBTA? Now, the problem is that we all know about this controversial law that's been passed at the State House, that if you're a town adjoining the MBTA station, you now have to build this zone of low-cost housing.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a curse to get better transportation, and yet at the same time, this business of low-cost housing. So it's a double-edged sword. It's no good answer to this, but wouldn't it be nice to have more rail capacity in this area?
Go ahead.
Can you back up to the 3 bud cars at the Clinton station?
Yep.
please?
There you are.
Okay, I can't tell you exactly, but in the 50s, the National Valley Railroad ran some fan trips. And is that freight car inside, does it say MEC on it?
Which one? The caboose or?
No, that's,
Oh, on the side, gosh.
I've seen pictures of this, but I thought it was only 1 bud car. But as I said, the National Valley ran fan trips at that time. And that picture, from the Boston and Maine caboose with the Minuteman and the bud cars, there's no McGinnis logos on them. And the fan trips were done in I think 1952 or something.
Oh, okay. The Bud cars came out in 1952.
It may have been a little bit
Yep,
later.
a little bit later.
It was before 55.
Okay,
Because McGinnis made quite an effort to put the logos on the ends of the cars. Still had the scripts on the side. But again, it's a Minuteman caboose, and you can tell there's no vegetation there.
right.
And, so that was probably approximately 40 years after the Great Separation. And now it's completely
I know.
overgrown.
Right,
And there's 3 tracks across the bridge, there's 1 now.
okay.
And there was yard tracks.
He's got a picture.
Any other comments or questions in the back? I thought I saw a hand over here. Yeah, go ahead.
How fast did the passenger trains go?
How fast did the passenger trains go?
Wow. Probably 30 miles an hour. Probably not very fast in those days.
Okay.
It was kind of a milk run, so to speak. They weren't express trains. Everything we can find, there was no mail rail service where they used to have the sorting of the mail on the trains. That was pretty much express trains only, not a local freight
Okay.
like this at all.
So the idea was, it wasn't a destination kind of a place. It was a service railroad.
Right.
So it was a collector railroad or a distribution railroad, rather than, A to B's services.
Okay.
And it made communities, like, I'll say it again, work together. You could live in Northborough and work in Marlborough. You could work in Clinton, even though you're, in Berlin, in a very rural area, you could still make it to, other places. Marlborough was like Clinton was, a manufacturing mecca, and was shipping goods all in the wire industry in Clinton. They made woven wire fences and screens and you name it, barbed wire. They made everything that was made of wire, and it was shipped around the planet based from this little railroad and that station. It's amazing. Go ahead.
This is, go ahead, right out here. You had it, so bring it out there. This is a whistle stop thing of Truman.
Okay. Hold it up.
Put it up. Yeah, you get a lot higher than that.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Look.
Well, go to, so go to you. Go to you a little bit.
Shut your mouth.
Yes. Wires. Right here, that's not too bad, it's a little higher, why not? That's FDR, Whistle Stop, along with young Joe Casey from Clinton, beside him, and then I think David I. Walsh from Clinton on the far left. I'm not sure of the others, I should know them, but I don't.
Wow, thank you.
Real quick story on the Truman visit that I
Okay.
heard quite a while ago.
Okay.
Skin McNally from Clinton was a federal mediator, and he knew all the Washington D.C. people. That's where he worked from time to time. He knew all the politicians, local, state, national. So when Truman came to town, he took his young son and he went down to the station and introduced the kid to like 10 different important people. Truman's secretary, who of course was from Clinton, all these other famous people. So then he got home that night and he said to the kid, what did you think of that? Shaking hands with the President of the United States of America. And the kid says, which one was that?
Any other general comments, questions? Yeah, right here.
If you
Go ahead, stand up.
if you go in the woods behind the gas station across from the Clinton Fire Station,
Right.
there's rail and tie, so that might have been where that connection track was.
It was.
That might be the original rail
Yes, they are.
sitting in the woods right there.
One sticking out of the fence, in fact.
Yep.
They didn't cut it.
Yeah, just a final thought. Think how the railroad freed up the farmers and the businesses from the horse and buggy and the limited capacity of a wagon and those poor horses, and having to take several days maybe to get to Boston and have to stop at a tavern with a load of apples. And now all these things can be taken to the cities and greatly increase the commerce of all the towns here. So what a miracle it was in those days to have a railroad. And so as a result, they tended to have what they call railroad fever. They built a lot of railroads that never went anywhere, and they spent a lot of money, but the hope was that it would generate commerce for people. And so thankfully the big railroads survived. Yes, sir.
Sir,
You bet. Go
what
ahead.
about the Bolton Railroad that went from Lancaster to Bolton, that ran once? Can you?
It ran once, yes. So there was a Lancaster Railroad that ran from the Hudson Main Street Station, not the one in Felton, but the Main Street Station, where today there's a big Shell station and Hudson Appliance. It went up, crossing Lincoln Street, which we call 85, went into the woods at Danforth Falls, and then went all the way up through the Boy Scout camp in Bolton called Camp Resolute. And it's one of the best places that survives where the track is. There's even a wonderful little bridge with the railroad ties there. The rails are all gone. It went over into Bolton. It went behind the Bolton schools. It crossed over 117 near the Catholic Church, ran on the north side for a while, round down kind of near the high school. It crossed again, down to the south, went through what they call the Wilder Road by the famous Wilder Estate, Mr. Wilder's mansion, and it ran over to the Twin Springs Golf Course and the International. It then kind of disappears, if you're trying to follow it today, from the International into Lancaster. There's a medical building, North Country Medical, on High Street Extension. It ran right through the middle of that building, and there's a wonderful surviving right-of-way, raised right-of-way, right to the river. And then it stops. It ran one train, and the question is, did they ever build a bridge across the river? And at what expense that would have been, because it's quite a drop, and I've never been able to solve that. So they supposedly ran one train with the board of directors to look at this wonderful railroad they had. They obviously had to back up, I'm quite certain, to go back into to Hudson. And then supposedly they had all kinds of fistfights, trying to agree which direction the train should run from. It ran one day, and they were sued by some disgruntled landowner for ruining his dam. And that was the end of the railroad, that one railroad. Tracks were laid for about 10 years, and then they were taken up and they were bought by the Fitchburg Railroad, which we saw, the big Fitchburg station, as a way to kind of protect anybody trying to compete with Fitchburg. It was suggested at the time of the dam to possibly use that Bolton-Lancaster Railroad right-of-way. And you can read about it here in the records at the Holder. It never went anywhere. They eventually built the tunnel and the viaduct in front of the dam. So it ran one day, and there's very few remnants left around town. But the Boy Scout camp is one of the best examples of seeing the pathway through the woods. The Boy Scouts use it to travel through the camp.
We got a question back there?
That train that ran from the fairs in Lancaster down over Mill Street, that was a narrow gauge. Different gauge track that went all the way along Supernauts and then crossed over at Twin Springs, went out through the woods, and it became a regular track when it got to 117. That was the fair's own private railroad,
Yep.
as far as I
Station
understand.
Center Bridge Road or whatever. We used to right there from the Lancaster, where the road splits. There was a building, and he said it was the fair's own railroad stop.
Yes, the fairs did have, so it's unrelated to the Lancaster Railroad, okay, from a chronology standpoint. Lancaster Railroad was 1874, one trip, okay? Stayed in the woods, took the tracks up 10 years later, and it was sold to the Fitchburg Railroad. The Fairs had their own private station in Lancaster, okay? And it was about a quarter mile from the official town of Lancaster's South Lancaster station. It's ridiculous. There's photographs, though, of the two of them. The Thayers having all this money, they had their own private place. Yeah. I didn't know it was any kind of narrow gauge, though.
No, I didn't
I had no
either.
idea. Yeah,
Since the
right. Yes, sir.
So with the MBTA rules, with the like the low cost elements, is that what's keeping like more passenger trains from coming through the area?
I don't think so. I'll be honest with you. It's an important issue for the residents, but I think it's a factor of the quality of the rails, which now is pretty interesting that they're really beefing it up. So suddenly, where you wouldn't have had maybe passenger quality rail systems in place, now it seems to open the door to that. And then the question is the willingness of the MBTA, which is always under fire, right, for expenses, to consider having service out this way. There's a number of articles that I found in the newspaper about suggesting MBTA travel over this branch. But again, the track improvements, yeah,
Money and
it's a lot of money,
politics.
right? And MBTA service is always under question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
So the truck that the freight train runs on now was part of the passenger track?
Yeah,
Oh, it was all the same thing.
same track,
So
Yeah.
how many cities does it go to?
12,
Oh, my.
12 towns and cities. Yeah.
We were told up in Leominster at their historical that the passenger service ended in 1928, which is really pretty early. But of course, registrations of automobiles went from something like 3 million in 1921 to 20 million in 1930. Okay, there's a famous railroad author named Klein who's researched that. And he says that's why it hurt so bad.
Come on in.
To have the automobile hurting passenger service. Something?
No?
No.
She's all right? She's from Bolton.
Oh, wonderful, okay. I can't see.
Used to live in that house.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
You can still see.
All right.
Any other comments or questions before we wrap? You're way in the back.
In the back?
I'm old enough to remember the passenger trains coming through Clinton. Because my parents' house was across from where they were flying to go up near up by the Woodlands. It would run through there.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember watching the passenger trains come and go from them.
Yeah. There was a question way in the back.
Is there any pictures existing of when the tracks were at the bottom grade? Because they had a direct 90-degree crossing at Main Street in Clinton.
Oh, yes.
Before they built that. Is there any pictures that exist of when they did that?
Yes, Who showed me that? Oh, there you are, sir, thank you. Good, so this gentleman has a nice newspaper clipping, and there's, from better photographs.
And it was just
showing it.
a right angle.
Because it's a
Street level.
high bridge. There's two bridges, one on top of another.
Yep. Railroad traffic was crazy those days.
So my bridge over there off of, down by Pearl Street and all that, where come over by the old Screeny's Dine.
Yes.
So what track was that? I did.
All right, yes. Well, I want to thank Dave and Ed.